Welcome to today's edition of Weathering the Storms of Life with the Rainses. Rob Rains, Sally Tippett Rains, STLSportsPage.com, as well as posting these daily quizzes on RainbowsForKids.org. Hope you're having a good day today as we kind of get through everything that's going on. The end of a week, another week of getting quarantine, sheltering in place. We missed the Cardinal home opener. Should have been on Thursday, but of course that was not played. Did talk to John Mozeliak on a Zoom conference call. We got that story up on STLSportsPage.com, as well as if you didn't get the new newsletter that went out on Thursday, you can send us an email at stlsportspage@gmail.com or go to the website and go to the Contact Us page and get on our list for our newsletter. A lot of good, helpful information. You might even want a prize this week if you're a part of our newsletter group. You've got a couple of words of wisdom before we get to today's questions?
My daily inspiration from my Choose Happy book, which it's really amazing that I just happened to write that book this year. I sound like I'm bragging about the book, but
That's
it's
terrific.
just full of just the kind of information we need at this time. And it's not really my writing, it's other people who gave me stories and words of wisdom and
You
quotes.
said find contentment in any situation, but you didn't have pandemic in the headline.
That's very true. We got to find happiness and contentment in every situation that
Yes,
we're
we
in.
do.
So here's a quote from Kevin Costner that's actually on a beautiful picture in the book. You have to decide if you're going to wilt like a daisy or are you going to go forward and live the life you have been granted.
This is the life we've been granted right now, so we're living it.
Making the best of it.
That's right. With today's TV show trivia questions, so hopefully you've got a pen and paper handy. You can jot down your answers to the questions or just play along. No prizes. Just think about the questions and your possible answers. After we review the questions, we will get to the answers. So
We're getting a kick out of all the comments we're getting
Yeah.
back from you and stuff. So thank you so much for taking the time out to look at our quizzes.
And since we're spending a lot of time watching television, that's the subject of today's quiz. Question 1. What is the longest continuously running game show in television history? Is it either Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, or The Price is Right?
All right, that was the longest continuously running game show in television history. Number 2, former Cardinals pitcher Joe Magraine's daughter made her mark on a nationally televised show by showing off her talent singing. What show was she on? I know the Crumbs have been doing this every day. They're going to know right who that was.
Question 3. What classic game show hosted by Monty Hall required contestants to choose prizes behind one of 3 different doors? Was that Concentration, Let's Make a Deal, or Truth or Consequences?
What 1965 television show centered around a talking object? The show didn't last a real long time, but it was centered around a talking object. These are the choices: Super Train, My Mother the Car, and Pink Lady and Jeff.
That was question number 4. Question 5. Speaking of something that talks, what was the name of the talking horse that had his own television show for a time? The name of the talking horse that had his own television show, and for a bonus point, what was his friend's name?
All right, number 6. What classic TV star got his start in music by playing a song at the end of every episode of his hit television show? Okay, was that Donny Osmond, Ricky Nelson, or Desi Arnaz? They started out as a TV star and they became a singer after that.
Question 7. What was the name of the ranch on Bonanza? Very simple question. Question 8. This television show, the final episode of this show, was the most watched episode of any television show in history. What was the name of that show? The most watched episode of any television show in history was what?
All right, question 9. What primetime drama holds the record for the second most watched episode in TV history? Second most watched episode in TV history.
The runner-up, number 2. Question 10. Speaking of long-running shows or popular shows, what is the longest-running television show in history? It's still on the air, the longest-running television show.
All right, question 11. Which of the following TV shows had the longest run? Now, this is not saying they were the longest in history or anything like that, but of these three,
Correct.
which one lasted the longest? Lassie, Gunsmoke, or Knots Landing? Lassie, Gunsmoke, or Knots Landing, which one was on the longest?
That was question 11. Question 12. What company is responsible for producing the original soap opera? The original soap operas were produced by what company? They were either Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, or Kellogg's. One of the 3.
Question 13. What soap opera, which started airing in 1952, has produced more than 15,000 episodes, and it actually started out as a radio show in 1937. So it's had the most episodes. It's a soap opera.
It's a long time to be on the air.
No kidding.
Question 14. Who are the actors who play, quote unquote, the big three on This Is Us? The characters, not the characters' names, but the names of the actors playing those three characters on This Is Us.
All right, and if you played with us yesterday, or the day before yesterday when we had the Leave It to Beaver questions, you probably got this one. But on the old Leave It to Beaver show, who was Ward Cleaver's co-worker?
Had a daughter Beaver's age and a son Wally's age. Question 16. What was the name of the character that David Cassidy played on the popular show that he starred in along with his stepmother Shirley Jones? The name of the show that, or the name of the character that was played by David Cassidy on a show that he co-starred in with his stepmother Shirley Jones.
All right, number 17. Who is the executive producer of the Real Housewives franchise reality show? The executive producer of all the Real Housewives franchise reality show.
Question 18. What children's show character was played by Bob Keeshan? Bob Keeshan played a children's show character back in the day. What was that name of that character?
Who was the Jeopardy host who ended his career in St. Louis as a radio talk show host? The Jeopardy host who eventually came to St. Louis and ended his career as a radio talk show host.
Question 20. What major movie star got his start by playing Dr. Doug Ross on the medical drama ER between 1994 and 1999? Who was the name of the actor who got his start playing Dr. Doug Ross on ER between 94 and 99?
Question 21. What was the name of the show in the 1980s which featured actors like Timothy Busfield, Patricia Wettig, Polly Draper, Ken Olin, and Peter Horton just hanging out at each other's houses? What was the name of the show in the 80s that had a bunch of people hanging out at each other's houses? And it's not Friends.
Or Seinfeld.
Right.
All right, question 22.
Shouldn't have
Final
told them
question.
that because they might have guessed those, but
Who played Lou Grant on the television show Mary Tyler Moore? The Mary Tyler Moore television show, what was the actor's name who played the character of Lou Grant? Okay. That's our questions for today, so now we will go over the answers. Question 1, the longest continuously running game show in television history was The Price is Right, still is for that matter. Price is Right first aired in 1972. That was 3 years before Wheel of Fortune made its debut. The current run of Jeopardy did not begin until 1984. If you picked Jeopardy, it did come on the air first, starting in 1964, but it had a gap there before it resumed in 1984.
And number 2, Joe McGrain's daughter was Shannon McGrain, and she was on American Idol, and she did great. She went up to number 12. She actually came to St. Louis and performed at our Rainbows for Kids gala.
Several years ago. It was
A lot of
fun.
people watching this might have actually got to meet her.
And she is still singing and recording.
Yeah, check her out, Shannon McGrain.
Okay, number 3, the classic game show hosted by Monty Hall was Let's Make a Deal. Question 4, the 65 television show had a talking object was?
My Mother the Car. Did you ever watch that?
I remember the name, but I don't remember the show.
We watched it.
Okay. The name of the talking horse was Mr. Ed, and if you knew at that show, you probably also knew that his friend's name was Wilbur. Okay, I can picture. I did watch that show.
Yes, and you can just hear
Wilbur?
Wilbur. A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
Unless it's a horse of a different color. Okay. Question 6: the classic TV star who got his start in music playing a song at the end of his own TV show was Ricky Nelson.
They all played music on their shows, but Ricky Nelson was the one who they were trying to push him as a musician.
Yeah, he was on the weekly televised show The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and that performance helped to skyrocket him onto the pop charts, making him a teen idol as well as a successful recording artist.
The name of the ranch in Bonanza? The Ponderosa.
Ponderosa. The TV show that was the most watched episode of all time, the final episode of MASH, aired on February 28th, 1983.
Number 9, what primetime drama show holds the record for the second most watched episode? That was Dallas. And it was the Who Shot JR episode. When JR was shot in the finale of the 3rd season of Dallas, people across the country wondered who killed him. The episode titled Who Done It was the second most watched show in television history.
The ultimate cliffhanger. And,
Yes,
and
it was.
every series seems like they have a cliffhanger now at the end of the season, but they're all based on how popular that.
Don't you
Who Shot
remember
JR?
that? It was like the whole summer went by or whatever
I
it
do
was.
remember
Who
that.
shot JR?
I do remember that.
And that was before the internet.
Yeah,
So I
think of
can't
what it
even
would be now.
imagine all the
Sure.
blogs that would have been written about it now.
Question 10, the longest running television show is Meet the Press. It's been on the air now for 72 years.
72 years. That's amazing.
Which of the following TV shows had the longest run out of between the three of Lassie, Gunsmoke, and Knots Landing? It was Lassie, 17 seasons. How many different dogs did they go through that were named
I
Lassie?
don't know, but I do remember some were
More
girls,
than-
some were boys.
More than one, yes.
What company is responsible for producing the original soap opera?
Makes sense when
Maybe
you
it was
think about
called soap opera because it was produced by Procter and Gamble.
Soap Company.
Yeah.
Question 13, the soap opera with more than 15,000 episodes beginning in 1952 after being a radio show first was Guiding Light.
The Big Three. Number 14, The Big Three on This Is Us. Chrissy Metz, Sterling K. Brown, and Justin Hartley.
Sterling K. Brown, of course, from St. Louis. Number 15, the old Leave It to Beaver show. The character of Ward's co-worker was Fred Rutherford, Lumpy's dad.
Don't get me started again. What was the name of the character that David Cassidy played on the popular show he starred on with his stepmother? It was the Partridge Family, and it was the heartthrob Keith Partridge.
Didn't you get to meet him later on? That wasn't him.
I met Shirley
You
Jones.
met Shirley Jones.
Yes.
That was who- okay.
Yes, I would have liked to have met David Cassidy.
Well, who
That
was
would
the
have
guy
been
you met?
awesome.
Oh, Barry Williams from Brady Bunch.
Yes, that was
Okay,
from the Brady Bunch.
that's who that was. Okay, yes. All right. Question 17. The executive producer of the Real Housewives franchise, another St. Louis native, Andy Cohen. The children's show character played by Bob Keeshan was Captain Kangaroo.
And number 19, if we're going to talk about all the people Sally Raines got to
Exactly.
meet.
That should be a topic for another quiz.
Jeopardy host who
6
ended his
connections to
career.
Sally Tippett Raines.
He ended his career in St. Louis as a radio talk show host. It was Art Fleming who worked at KMOX years ago when I worked at KMOX Radio.
Host of the Afternoon Drive
Yes.
program at the time.
Yep, he was a great guy. And
I
it was
know.
so exciting. He had that booming voice just like he did on Jeopardy.
And you've actually got a connection to the answer to number 20 as well, because the actor who got his start as Dr. Doug Ross on ER was George Clooney, who was in the movie Up in the Air, filmed in St. Louis when you and BJ tried to become extras for the movie and blew it.
I wonder if anybody out there did. Remember they had like tryouts. It was at Crestwood Plaza. We all stood in this big long line to be extras in that movie Up in the Air. And BJ and I did go out there, and I don't know why they didn't pick us.
You were not selected.
What the heck?
You can't even be an extra. The end of your movie career before it began. Question 21, the characters that played on that television show in the 1980s hanging out at each other's house. The broadcast was 30-something. And the final question for today, the actor who played Lou Grant on the Mary Tyler Moore Show was Ed Asner. Thanks for joining along on this episode of Weathering Another Storm of Life with the Ranges. Have a safe weekend, everybody. Stay home. We'll be back with some more programs for you starting next week here on stlsportspage.com as well as rainbowsforkids.org.